Well, you came to the wrong place, man.
Since 2000. Reefer, Kansas, Parkersburg, Iowa. For and then in 2011, Joplin.
Do any in your free time?
Moving through the
So that's there was a tornado like I was not.
Where do you from? Okay, yeah, I know exactly.
I was ready. Let's do it.
Out the last weather briefing this spring semester, believe it or not. Per tradition, usually the first and last speaker is Rich Grumm here from the National Weather Service. So we're seeing some rain today, first time in a while. So
Thanks. So this is the season ender. So I think we'll talk about a few interesting things about the kind of the weather / climate that has affected us, I guess, since about December. It was really a really warm December. We actually had a pretty warm March here. We'll look at that. We had a snowstorm. Got us, depending where you live in the state colleges, got a reasonable snowfall out of it, but a really heavy snow just missed us. That was probably the only big storm worth talking about or remembering for this winter for us if you like snow. It got briefly cooled in April, which killed our record for the least this winter. And we'll also see it also, the ridge that made us cold actually made it really warm over Greenland and started one of the most rapid onsets of melting in Greenland ever recorded. And then we had this pretty severe weather that kind of over-forecast for the tornado threat. It was like 590 reports of severe weather, I think, on 2 days ago. But they thought it was going to be a big tornado event, but the shear didn't work out. But the ensembles did really well with the pattern, the concept of the weather. But the motor convection was another issue. And then we'll look at our local weather here. Clearly it's going to be cooler and wetter for a while. And then how many people here in the room graduating next week or involved in graduation? So I'll take a peek at the graduation weather, even though it doesn't apparently affect anybody in the room. So this is just a summary from the climate forecast system reanalysis showing what the pattern looked like from the 1st of December to the 31st of December in 6-hour increments. This summed up the 500 heights, the 850 temperatures, the 1,000 the surface pressure systems, and then the principal water. You can see we had above normal heights over much of the eastern United States. It was a really strong subtropical ridge south and east of Florida, and that thing actually poked its head, we'll see in a minute, further north, and it was the exceptionally warm weather right around Christmas time, and you can see our 850 temperatures average over much of North America, especially Central and North America, were way above normal, and the precipitation, the principal water was actually suppressed to the south, and basically it didn't look like a classic El Nino that we were in, like what some people still believe was the strongest El Nino on record. And you can see the rainfall pattern. You can see it was very wet on the west coast, but it was wet in the northern part of the west coast. Further north, and it actually went into Canada. I don't have the data. It's the U.S. 2.5 kilometer precip analysis. But you can see it was kind of wet in the Gulf of Mexico and all, just off the Florida coast. And there's about 100 millimeters of precip during the month for us. It's 4 inches, I guess. But it wasn't a very active period of time in Southern California where they needed significant drought relief. And then, of course, between about the 23rd of December and the 29th of December, that big subtropical ridge really got big, and it pushed into our area. We had, 1 to 2 standard deviations above normal height anomalies for a solid week in December over our part of the country, and our 850 temperatures were 2 standard deviations above normal. The 10-degree isotherm actually came through Washington, D.C. There was this huge, in the lower panel, the subtropical ridge over the western Atlantic, and there was this huge plume of above normal moisture just off the East Coast. So that's why it got kind of wet in the Gulf Coast off the East Coast. So we had this really warm December, and we have Christmas Eve. I know I bicycle 40 miles on Christmas Eve. It's like, what, 65 degrees? Pretty warm. And then Christmas, this was actually Christmas Eve. This was 0Z on the 25th of December. Just looking at an instantaneous snapshot, you can see there was a deep trough in the west, so they were thinking it was like, hey, we're finally getting winter, and it was extremely warm in the eastern United States. And actually, on this particular day, the 850 temperatures over New York City, it's hard to read, they were up at 12 degrees Celsius on this, in the evening of December 24th, and they had high temperatures in the 70s on Christmas. The people had air conditioners on from Pittsburgh, I guess, all the way to Hartford, Connecticut. So it was a really warm pattern, nice tight baroclinic zone, and winter was surviving up in northwestern portions of the United States and northwestern Canada. So then we had this almost snowstorm, and this is the ensemble forecast from 6 members. The little dot shows what state colleges. This is the ensemble mean from 6 different GEFS runs prior to the event. And we were on the northern edge of the storm, and Dr. Graybush is in the audience here. He knows that this was 1 degree data. And if you look, the edge was even sharper and more realistic if you looked at the higher resolution half-degree data that NSEP now provides. But we were on the edge of what was going to be a major snowstorm potentially. That's over 2 inches of QPF that was forecast in the Washington, D.C. area. You notice it didn't have that over in the New York metropolitan area where they also got smacked. And this is the probabilistic forecast, and you see we were meant to be bridesmaids, and I don't know about you, but I'm too ugly to be a bridesmaid. But anyway, the ensembles gave us a good clue that we were going to be on the edge of a major snowstorm, and that the brunt of the storm is going to be to our south and east. And it's a good case to learn from, but it was probably the best winter storm we had to forecast this winter. And then this is what the radar looked like at the close call. I was working on this with Steve Graybush and one of his students, and this is actually the CFS with the radar data. And you can see the evolution, like the heavy snow bands just missed us. They missed us by that much. But I guess people who lived in Boalsburg and Pine Grove Mills, I guess they had like, what, 6 to 9 inches of snow here. And I guess further east in our valley, some people had a foot. But we, Altoona had almost 19 inches of snow. Huntington had 20 inches of snow. But I live in Park Forest, and I could optimistically say I rounded up to 6 inches of snow. But I cross-country skied that morning in the snow and that evening, so I got 5 times the ski in this winter. It's pretty lame. So it was a close call. It was exciting, though. And then we ended with, kind of got warm again in March. The subtropical region that was persistent over the Atlantic kind of stuck around. This is the same exact kind of data we looked at for December. You see all the yellow, the mustardy colors show that there was a kind of persistent height anomalies off the southeast United States and over the Caribbean, and the 850 temperatures were slightly above normal. It wasn't as impressive as December, and then it got cold in early April. Then the very end of March, April, and you can see we reversed. The height anomalies actually went negative. We got in the blue zone. The blue zone's for loading and unloading cold air parcels, apparently. And so we got chilly for a while, and so it snowed a couple times in early April, and we lost our record for the least snowiest winter. It was a travesty to suffer all that warmth and then lose the record. I was like, I put a black shroud over my snow stick. But anyway, it got cold briefly, and then while that was happening, at times I'm not going to show the dailies. There was like a 576 closed ridge over Greenland at times, and it got really warm, and the temperatures went above zero in southeastern Greenland, and the snow and ice melt began really early in Greenland. Just want to point that out. This is just switch the perspective to see that massive ridge that formed over Greenland. I don't know if anybody was paying attention to that. I remember I was working midnight just before the warm-up came, and that block was really impressive in the models, that really big ridge that was forming. So that was kind of exciting. And then just this week, our models have been showing this big open flow from the Gulf of Mexico, kind of the ridge that was parked in the eastern United States, and this trough come to the Rockies, great open Gulf of Mexico, and people were predicting, even a high threat for big tornadoes, but it turned out it was a pretty good severe weather event, but we didn't have the right shear and everything, and so we had to really, this is 594 reports of severe weather. There just weren't that many tornadoes, so it was a big event. It was well predicted. The GEFS last week was showing really high CAPE and the potential for several surges, a big convection in the central United States, and that panned out. What didn't pan out was the people thought it was going to be tornadic, and so here was the GEFS forecast from the 22nd. This was like 5 days 4.5 days in advance, and it had humongous CAPE up from Oklahoma all the way up into Kansas and across Iowa and Missouri, and kind of sliding, a little bit to the east, right along the Ohio Valley. So it kind of got the pattern pretty good, where it would be unstable for thunderstorms. I remember briefly the Millersville students came for their annual tour. I told them there was going to be a couple of big severe weather outbreaks in the next week. It'd be kind of making the news. And the one thing that wasn't really there is the GEFS. This is the ensemble mean, of course. It had strong 850 winds, but they weren't really super duper winds. I remember doing a case study on the big successive events in 2000. I think it was May 2003, I believe. We had like a series of really big events. Not only the models produced high Cape, but they showed really, really strong 850 winds. And the winds weren't that impressive at 850, and maybe that was a little bit of a signal that it'd be a good severe weather event, but maybe not enough shear. So that's kind of sums up what happened, since over the last semester. But there's no seniors in the room, so. But anyway, our current forecast is cooler and wetter for a while. I have the SREF 2-meter temperatures here, and you can see we're going to stay flatline today. The patient's dead in terms of temperature rises today. Maybe a little warmer tomorrow, and then warming up over the weekend. And clearly, the SREF is forecasting some rain today. Maybe we might get close to a ½ inch of rain over the next 24 hours, but I'm with weather at 0.7, so maybe 0.35 inches. And maybe, obviously, there's hints of a rain event coming up later in the weekend. I'm going to try to switch gears here to kind of, since we're looking at what's going on. Here's the water vapor image, and you can see there's a nice big MCS that developed last night and this morning, persistent over the Gulf Coast. Nice enhanced V, so there must be some severe weather down in there. I like the enhanced. This is a water vapor. You can kind of see the enhanced V in even in the water vapor. This particular instance, you can see the series of weak short waves that are moving over us. The deep moisture plume coming up over us, and so clearly we're going to have unsettled weather. And we're low level. We're cold now. A cold front came through the other night. I remember bicycling behind the cold front on, it was a Tuesday night. It was really windy. Like anybody ever come up Seabird Hill on a bicycle? It's like a 2-mile climb out of Bellefonte. But clearly we have low level cold air. We have these waves and this moisture going over the frontal boundary. And if I switch gears here, let me see if I can do this. I got to. Was
that a bicycling pun?
It was a bicycle. Yeah.
Switching gears?
Switching gears. I didn't catch that, but you got it. Yeah. It was an unknown pun. Well, we can switch to the radar. You can see the radar shows this broad band of warm advection that's pushing up, that's plume moisture over this low-level frontal boundary that's over us, and you can see that there's some pretty good rain. I'm going to Louisville this afternoon, so I'm going to drive out of the rain when I get to Pittsburgh this evening. And but there's this band of rain that's got to work its way through here. It looks there's obviously some embedded convection, some stronger echoes in it, and going over the low-level frontal boundary. And what else do they have on here? I'm not an expert on this page. So you can see the surface plot. If I gotta move this over just a tad. But that's as far as over it goes. I'll have to slide the bar. So in the surface data, you can see there's this kind of weak area of high pressure in here, and there's an area low. It's hard to see. There's a low right here over Indiana, and there's a nice trough in here. And you can see our winds are blowing ageostrophically right into the low. We have nice low-level ageostrophic flow in the low of a cold air. I guess was it 50 to get to 50 here today? It's like 46. Yeah. So obviously we got this low-level phrenologic circulation going. That's that band of rain we saw in the radar temperatures. This map we're mainly in the 40s at this time, but clearly we have a high to the north and a trough of the Ohio Valley. So we have nice, and the winds are blowing almost perpendicular in places in Pennsylvania to the isobars. So we have good ageostrophic circulation. So we got to deal with this frontal circulation, work its way through us for the next I guess 12 to 24 hours. So if I go to the HER, did a new HER come in? No, still 14Z, but this is good enough, I think. In the HER, it's hard to see, but there's an area of high pressure up to our north and east, and the broad area of low pressure back to our south and west. And even the HER shows this kind of ageostrophic flow, and the winds are east, northeast. And this is the precip that evolves in time over this boundary. And the load just kind of works its way over towards us. And we'll move to the synthetic radar. It'll probably show the rain a little better. I'm optimistic that I'm going to get out of the rain when I pick my wife up in Pittsburgh tonight. So, and he goes like that. One of those little short waves we saw on the water vapor is kind of working its way through here this evening. But it looks like most of the rain, at least in the HER that falls, is going to be between now and about 3Z. So enjoy the rain while you got it. It doesn't look like a lot of rain, but any bet we can get. Anybody here like go out in the woods or anything like that? The woods were like really dry. Like I do a little jogging and hiking over in Scotia Range, and if you drop a match, it's going to go. So we really need the rain. Our fire danger must be really, really high. So that's what the HER is showing it. So we can move over here to the. This is the. We don't live in Allentown. This is the State College plume. It's still the 9Z plume is available, and you can see it kind of shows a peak in the rain somewhere this afternoon, and the rain drops off. But some of the members keep rain going into the evening hours tonight, and then they show a secondary surge of some showers, probably more convective tomorrow afternoon. And then you can see that the SREF rather is showing just another shot at rain, maybe more significant rain. We'll take a look at the forecast sometime on Sunday. It looks like Sunday is going to be a relatively wet day, and the SREF has an optimistic 1.6 inches of rain here. I think that that's probably what I've seen this winter. Probably really, really robustly wet, but it's nice to dream, right? So, and you can see we're flatlined at the temperatures in the SREF. There are a few members that say we will break out and pop up warm, and we get a little warmer tomorrow, but we still have to deal with the clouds hanging out in the low clouds, and then we warm up on Saturday ahead of the next wave, and then some of the members say the rain doesn't come in as aggressively, so there's a lot of uncertainty with the temperatures on Sunday. I probably would lean towards the cold side of these few very warm members. And so let me go back to the PowerPoint, see if I'm on schedule here. So I looked at these more in detail. So this is the GEFS forecast, and you can see it too is flatline cold, and then it shows us warming up next week. And by the time we get towards the late next week, it has temperatures rebounding at least into the 60s. And has anybody ever used the GFS 2-meter temperature forecast? It doesn't do well with well-mixed boundary layers. It was getting crushed by an average of 6 degrees Fahrenheit this winter because we had these really well-mixed air masses. And there's a really tragic cold bias. Cold bias in the GEFS and the GFS data. I would almost recommend if you're going to look at them to make a forecast, you get the bias-corrected data because it's really that poor. So, and then this is the long-range GFS, and again, it has the QPF forecast that we see coming in today and overnight tonight, and then it's got a hint of another maybe significant event on Sunday, and then it kind of says we dry out. There's a couple of spurious things. I think it's really curious that there's a blue member there. Like, I'm not really worried about snow personally, but so we'll look beyond. We'll look at the weekend storm, and then we'll also look at graduation weather. We'll focus on using the GEFS bias-correct data or the NAIFS, whichever is the most recent. But the trend is the models are trying to try to carve out a trough of the eastern United States. It's not. Earlier runs were shown to be really cold in the south, but it's not going to be as cold. So it wasn't a good late next week wasn't a good week to pick your vacation, say in Orlando. But as for here, there's no strong signal other than the fact we cut all the moisture off, and we're probably going to cut the moisture off into the plains, so the severe weather activity in the plains is going to diminish rapidly over the course of the next few days. So we'll switch back, and well, I have the NAIFS up. We'll start with the NAIFS. So the NAIFS is a bias-correct data. They don't bias-correct the analyses. So you can see it starts out with our current weather here, and I think I can mouse through this. I have the North American view on, and I'm going to have to go. Is it function F11 on this computer? F11, not F111. You got to be over like 50 to get that joke right. So anyway, you can see we start out there's a kind of a weak ridge over central Canada, northern North America. There's a little bit of a pocket of cold air in the frontal system. Clearly there's a baroclinic zone draped just to our north, warm to the south, and that's been given all the fun stuff, I guess you'd say, to the this pattern to the plains. And I guess this has to move over before it'll. Okay, so this is Friday. This is tomorrow morning. We're still in that baroclinic zone, still stuck over us, and then the flow weakens a little bit. You can see a trough goes into the southern plains. A ridge builds along the east coast Saturday afternoon. So we're probably going to squeak out a relatively nice day on Saturday. Our temperatures actually go above normal. And then our frontal system clearly wants to clear through the region on late Sunday into Monday. And we'll look at that a little bit deeper. And then you can see it's not above normal, but there is a trough that's generally getting carved out in a ridge in the western United States. So we have a ridge in the west, we cool off in the east. And then this trough progresses with time, and actually the heights go below normal in the central United States, and it gets a little bit, it's about a centimeter below normal by next Friday over the southern United States. Nice deep cutoff, not a cutoff, but a very deep trough over Florida. Fortunately, it's, I guess, positively tilted, but I guess it'd be very unstable down there, and so if you, not a good time to be in Florida, I think, late next week and next weekend. But we're kind of like in the trough, but we're cut off. There's no way to get any moisture here. So other than the fact it's going to be cyclonic, there's no real, strong signal for any like big weather events affecting our area based on these forecasts. So let me slide up and switch gears. We'll go to the GFS in 3-hour increments, and the we'll look at the evolution of the surface pattern because there's a second rain event coming. So you have the spaghetti plots on the top, and then the surface with the anomalies at the bottom. So you can see a little wave that's supposed to go underneath the high, kind of weakens. This weak wave comes through. It's the next 24 hours. Weak high pressure kind of builds in late Friday, and then the high just kind of dominates. Looks like a classic winter overrunning event, maybe some freezing drizzle and freezing. But really, you see this cyclone that comes out, the wave that comes out over the weekend, currently in the GFS is much stronger. You can see there's a fairly good low, there's a fairly good gradient here, nice easterly flow. There's a nice implied baroclinic zone in here, and that's supposed to come across. And so that should give us a good shot at some rain. This forecast, actually, in the 3-hour increments I have, only goes out to Sunday. That forecast says we should have a fairly good overrunning, steady rain event later this weekend. We'll look at the QPF in we'll go 6-hour increments in about 1/10 of an inch, and we'll pick a better map projection so we can see it better. But so the GEFS from 60 this morning at least showed the rain will definitely be on us by 15Z today, kind of peaking between 12 and about 21Z. Then after about 18Z, the rain actually lessens a little bit, and literally this evening just be like light stuff around. The bulk of the rain is like we're in the kind of the heart of the period of rain. And then this Friday, some scattered. Few members have some light potential precipitation. Then that wave begins to approach. You see the QPF blossoming over West Virginia late Saturday, and looks like probably any time Saturday afternoon, evening, maybe a shot of rain coming back in on us. And it's hard to tell, but down here, instead of having like a 1/10 or 2/10, we got a half to a 1/4 inch of rain in the GEFS forecast to come into us over the course of the day on Saturday night to Sunday. So it looks like it'll rain on Saturday night, Sunday. And if we look at the GFS, is the 12Z in? No. You can always hope, though. We'll look at the rain threat. 12-hour intervals of rain, and you can see the same pattern when you look at the data on the 1-degree data. It's the rain tonight, the rain over the weekend, and then we kind of dry out. Well, next week, maybe get some showers with little weak waves pass through, nothing descript. And when we get to the end of the week, we're on Friday, there's no really organized rain, so probably the rain be like, climatological, maybe a little bit lower than climate, and temperatures probably close to normal. So it looks like our best chance of rain is today, and then on Saturday night, Sunday, and graduation shouldn't be too wet, shouldn't be too cold, it should be just right? So here we go, alternate tab. Stole my own joke, as you'll see in a minute. And so there's no real strong signals. I think the cutting off of the moisture to the Gulf from the Gulf Mexico into the plains will be a good thing. And cold in the south, and I kind of showed this image. Everyone through this already. And we're kind of in a no man's land. We can't get a lot of moisture. We're not going to be very cold. We're going to be close to normal, I guess. And then you can see this just shows the 850 temperatures. Our 850 temperatures next week are pretty close to normal. There's nothing earth-shattering about the temperatures. So in summary, we had a really good, interesting set of weather from Christmas until today so far. The ensembles did really well if we used them correctly for some of these more significant events, especially I think it gave us a good idea that we got to have a close call on that 23rd of January event. And they really forecast some of these big ridges we have really well. And they gave us a hint on the severe weather event earlier this week. But for warmth, it was truly a December to remember. And so it looks like locally here for the next few days, be a little cooler and wetter. We've enjoyed an unbelievable stretch of great weather, I have to say. And so we have some rain coming up in the next 12, 30 hours, and then we have a late weekend rain event to worry about. And graduation, this should be just about right. So the Goldilocks model says it'll be fine. Any questions? Yes.
On the 12Z EC yesterday, it was a big cut off over in this area 10 days out, and now it's much further northeast.
That's why I don't chase models, Dave.
So there's a lot of variation.
Yeah, that's why I don't chase models. Ensembles are your friend. Anybody else? Yes.
So the SBC moderate for earlier in the week seems to have gotten sort of mixed reviews.
Yes. You're on the Albany map, aren't you?
Yes.
You've been reading a lot. Yeah.
Well, some of them.
Yes.
So it is an interesting thing. To me, it was actually a very good forecast. Maybe if you really read the text, more talking about hail and damaging winds, not so much about the Any comments on sort of the new era of communication and how to get information out so it's right?
Well, I think I read they did kind of overemphasize sometimes in discussions that there would be enhanced tornado threat too, and that was in the forecast. But what I think personally is our models and our ensemble forecast systems can really forecast the patterns nowadays very well, and those patterns, as you saw, can then generate some of the conditions. For example, had really high Cape, so we knew it was going to be big severe weather outbreak. I think the missing ingredient was the winds weren't very anomalous, which probably due to uncertainty and stuff like that. So communicating that there was a high risk for a big severe weather event was really good. Maybe leaving the mode of convection out altogether. At this time, we can't tell, and that would have helped. But so yeah, I've heard like the Capital Weather Gang. They're kind of critical of mentioning the significant tornado threat. I mean, there were like 13 tornadoes of the 594 reports. So on the plus side, as you acknowledge, our models, our ensemble forecast systems specifically, have done really, really well showing us the patterns where with extreme rainfall event can occur. There were two incredibly, I didn't even show that there were two incredible rainfall events that were well predicted, not exactly where the rain fell, but the pattern. In fact, one of them was a rain/snow event where there was 50 inches of snow outside of Boulder, and the models for days were showing 1 to 4 inches of QPF from the mountains of Colorado to the plains of Nebraska, and it kind of happened because they got the pattern right. And then the next 2 days later, we had the big floods in Houston where 8 people drowned. The models got that pattern really good, and they get the patterns right. But the nuances of convection is a mesoscale phenomenon. I think you have to. I guess the lesson here is maybe talk about a high threat of a widespread big severe weather event, but maybe not talk about the mode of convection, whether you can have supercells and tornadoes, or just that maybe we're not there yet. Maybe. I don't think we're there. I don't think we'll get there in my lifetime. Is that your read on it, or you have a slightly?
Well, I've always just sort of wondered, winds operate a lot, right?
Yeah.
At least my interpretation, operate often people then imply big tornadoes.
Yeah. What they use those words, and I guess that got emphasized.
I think it's easy to make that
Yes.
the two. The operate ominous tornadic is words like you sort of mentally put together. Maybe we just need to think about it.
How we convey it.
Phrase for this kind of situation is probably not going to be tornadic, but it's still going to have severe.
Hey, 594 reports of severe weather. That's probably the event of the year so far. That's the one to break now. We set the gold standard. Is that graphic I had? So yeah, it's a balancing act. Our models are good. They make us look good, but they're not. We're not that good, and they're not that good. But we're going to get better, right? Okay. Yes.
A general comment. With the explosive coverage we have in the media now of every weather event, every little tornado outbreak becomes the world's coming to an end. I wonder if the Weather Service shouldn't include some perspective with the forecast, or with the comments on an event. Point out that 6 inches of rain in Boulder is a big deal, but we had 30 inches in 10 hours just north of here in 1942. There's no perspective. People, I think the world's coming to an end because of the extensive coverage. If there are 2 tornadoes that can occupy 10 minutes on the night of the news, I get the impression that the public is thinking that the weather is different than it used to be and more extreme because there's more coverage of the extreme events.
Well, that's the salient point. Is the weather's different because it's so rapidly in the news. It's so rapidly conveyed, and people express their emotions, opinions at the speed of Instagram and Twitter, and then of course it gets into the news faster too. But I think we're actually working on that direction too. Like we're trying to use, like when you use anomalies, you can temper how big an outlier an event is. And we're working on a program. I'm involved in a program in the Weather Service. We're working on using model climatology, which is a really good thing to temper what you have in a big QPF event. And now we're using average recurrence intervals to kind of put the rainfall in perspective of is it how big an outlier it is. And so I think the better use of climate data, whether it's from reanalysis or a model internal climate data, is an area where we can, at least in our forecast products, put the perspective in there, say this event is extreme or it's kind of a typical event. I think we have a lot of progress to make in that direction, but I think it's a good way to go. But you're right, keeping things in perspective is often difficult for people, especially when at the press of a button you get a piece of information out and the world's coming to an end at my house. But when that happens, I'm just Armageddon out of here. Did I answer your question, kind of?
Yeah.
Yes, Dave.
Two things. One is what we discussed is information 24/7 on the media. Back the other day, some concern of how strong that cap was, especially over Kansas, and how hard it might be to break that.
Well, they broke the cap. They just didn't have the correct shear profiles, I guess. Anybody else? We should thank the people who did this for us all semester and all year.
All right, well, thank you guys for coming this semester. We shall return in the fall.
How you doing?
All right.
Thank you, Rich.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch in May.
Yeah, I know. It's coming up. But yeah, sounds good. Talking about